This video is about part 3 of your color scheme watercolor project. Tracing your shape. Hopefully yesterday you were able to make a shape on an index card and cut out that shape. Your goal was to make a shape that is about as big as your hand. That's a good size for it to be. Here this acorn is about the size of my hand. The reason you want it to be big is because we're about to trace it onto a piece of paper a number of times. And if you ended up with an index card with a small shape, then when you start tracing it onto the paper, these little shapes that are as big as your palm or even smaller are going to take forever to work on. At the beginning of this school year, hopefully you had a chance to get some sheets of this really large, heavyweight drawing paper. This is what we will be finishing this project on. So this is your final paper. You want to keep it nice. Now your large shape, you're going to be tracing it onto this paper a number of times. Make it interesting, make it dynamic. Your shape doesn't have to be vertical all the way across. Turn it and put it in interesting directions. When you're tracing the shape, feel free to also let it go off the edge of the page in some places. While you are tracing, you want to make sure that your pencil line is dark enough for you to be able to see, but you don't need it to be a super duper dark line. As long as you can see it, then you are good. Now, these first acorns that I have traced onto my paper, you can see that they overlap in certain areas. That is what you want. So while I am tracing my acorns all in different directions, be thinking about making every couple of shapes overlap one another. So you can see my acorns are filling the paper. I've made a number of them. You can still see some space in between the acorns. We will call this our negative space, the empty space that's around them. And then you can see other areas where two have overlapped, and that's what you want to see. Make sure that your shapes overlap in at least some places on your paper. Now, if you were to do this exact step using the tiny acorn, do you know how long that would take? This is a very large sheet of paper. So if I start tracing this tiny acorn all over this paper, it's going to take forever. I give up. This is taking too long. Just don't use a tiny shape. The tiny shape versus the big shape. Remember that the tiny shape does not work. You want to use a big one. Your goal is to fill your paper with your shape. Trace it multiple times, overlapping, and also showing some negative space in between your shapes.